Dragonflight was certainly one of the most important times in this franchise history. It came out after Blizzard's most turbulent years and with a promise of a change in philosophy and direction. My name is Nathan, this is Azerothian, and as we're wrapping up Dragonflight's final moments, I'd like to look back on what it got right and what didn't quite work. So let's just dive in. For the first time, maybe since Warlords of Draenor, Dragonflight felt like it was an expansion of the game itself. Especially in the past 6 years, the game was plagued by a bunch of features and systems that we knew from the beginning that was going to be left behind as soon as the expansion wrapped up. But Dragonflight started off strong with the revamped talent systems, a much more meaningful way of dealing with professions, and later on a complete overhaul of the gearing system. And of course, dragon riding that came to stay, and from the next expansion on is going to be called dynamic flying. Old flying mounts are also getting upgraded to this new way of flying as well. One of the things that I really loved about this new phase of Blizzard dealing with World of Warcraft was transparency and the roadmap, and sticking to it. I also thought that it was genius of them to start delivering bits of story and lore around minor patches. One of the things that bothered me very much was how slow they were in delivering story and happenings in the stories. Just as an example, when Vol'jin died and said that
have granted me clarity, a vision. You must be what
we only found out what happened years and years later in a dungeon in Shadowlands.
And made the Banshee war chief with a whisper.
So by the time that the story unfolded, it wasn't that impactful. But now, every other 6 to 8 weeks, the story moves forward, and that gives us a much deeper sense of being part of the story and understanding it properly. And speaking of stories, in my opinion, Dragonflight will forever be the expansion where all the side quests were way more interesting than the main quest lines. The main quest lines in this expansion from the beginning to end was a letdown. The whole bringing back Ysera from Shadowlands had a very weak justification and ended up being almost for nothing because she didn't have a crucial part to play in the Emerald Dream questline. When we went to Zarala Cavern, Rathian felt like he has his lines written by someone who didn't quite understand the character. I mean, sure, Rathian was a little bit of a playboy and can be a brat sometimes, but that's not the entire character. I felt like whoever wrote these questlines, they reduced Rathian into one single aspect of his personality, and that just destroyed the appeal of the character. Then there's the power thing. Aside from small, strong moments like Alexstrasza fighting Raszageth, or maybe more recently when Veranoth freezes Odin with just a wave of her hand, I felt like these ancient, powerful dragons could have been portrayed a little bit more menacing. They were so eager to show us that the dragons had lost their spectral power that they ended up feeling underwhelming. There was a lot of talking, there was a lot of threatening, but there wasn't a lot of action. And this problem was made very clear with the last cinematic of the last raid of the expansion, which I'm not going to make a lot of comments on because I feel like the internet has done this enough already. On the other hand, side quests were a treat in this expansion. It showed that whoever was responsible for side quests should probably get a raise or something, because they were really good in character developing, pacing the stories, and creating really meaningful moments and interesting dialogues. Everything just worked with most of the side quests. And I'm not sure if that's considered a side quest or not, but the Blue Dragonflight questline was the high of the expansion for me. The characters were very well fleshed out, the pacing was great, we managed to visit old places and solve unresolved plot lines left behind. It connected with other storylines from older expansions like from Legion. The Blue Dragon's questline should be a standard of quality. It was a 10 out of 10. Dragonflight proposes a very different change of pace and a very welcome one. I don't remember the last time it was so easy and therefore fun to get to the end of the game. As soon as you get to level 70, all you have to do is run some world events, get some catch-up gear, and there you go. Not to mention that removing the bloat of affixes was the best thing that could have ever happened to Mythic Plus. Even though I don't think that we're quite there yet in terms of solo play and solo progression, I think Dragonflight did an excellent job in stepping into the right direction. We already know that they're going to give us more in the War Within with the introduction of delves, but the first time I felt like there was a fun loop of gameplay in the endgame for someone who didn't want to dedicate to high-end, harder content like higher Mythic Plus levels or even heroic or mythic rating. The revamped professions give you enough to do between finding treasures to get knowledge points, or filling working orders, or maybe staying around in Valdrakken trying to get a name for yourself and building a clientele. There was always something to look forward every week for whoever wanted to dedicate to professions. The world event started strong, and I think they were pretty consistent throughout the expansion, but I feel like they should start actually thinking more about them in terms of functionality and purpose, instead of just thinking that there must be an event for people to do in every patch or every expansion, because I feel they missed the mark in some of them. Overall, I think Dragonflight might be on top 5 for most people who played of World of Warcraft. I think it lived up for most of its initial purposes, and even with some flaws and letdowns here and there, it was definitely a strong step in the right direction. Currently, I cannot wait for the War Within and to experience everything that we saw in BlizzCon and much more. So if you watched up to here, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and let me know in the comments, was Dragonflight a good experience for you or not? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.